She doesn't need to be told. She doesn't need proof or promises or even words, because deep down, she already knows. The divine feminine realizes you are her twin flame, not through logic, not through explanations, but through resonance. Something in her soul whispers the truth, even when her mind tries to deny it. She feels it in the silence, in the ache, in the way her heart always returns to you, no matter what. This realization doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives like a steady flame, burning stronger every time life tries to extinguish it. It's not obsession. It's not fantasy. It's recognition. And once she knows, truly knows, nothing can ever be the same again. On the twin flame journey, there is a moment when the divine feminine stops asking, stops doubting, and stops chasing external confirmation. It's not that the signs disappear. In fact, they become stronger than ever. But she no longer depends on them. Why? Because something inside her has shifted. She has entered the stage of silent knowing. This silent knowing is not logical. It is not based on words, gestures, or even actions from the masculine. It is something much deeper. It's the way her soul reacts when she feels your energy. It's the way her heart pulls her back to you, no matter how many cycles of separation have unfolded. It's the way her spirit whispers again and again, it has always been him. For a long time, the feminine may resist this knowing. Her mind may try to rationalize, to argue, to explain away the intensity. She may say to herself, if he were really my twin flame, he wouldn't be silent. He wouldn't run. He wouldn't cause me so much pain, and yet, even in the darkest nights, when everything points to giving up, something inside her refuses. It's not obsession. It's not stubbornness. It's truth. A truth that her soul cannot deny. This stage often begins quietly. She notices it when she realizes that nothing and no one else compares. She may meet other people, even kind ones, even loving ones, but her soul does not respond the same way. The bond she feels with you is different. It's not about attraction or compatibility. It's about recognition. Her spirit recognizes yours, even if her mind struggles to accept it. The silence between you also becomes part of this realization. For many feminines, silence used to mean rejection, abandonment, or failure. But when the silent knowing arises, she begins to feel something new. Even in the silence, the bond is alive. Even in the absence, she feels your presence. This paradox becomes undeniable proof. She realizes that the connection is not sustained by words or contact. It exists on its own because it is eternal. This is why she cannot fully walk away. She may try. She may block you, cut cords, declare she is done. But the truth remains, humming beneath the surface. The universe keeps bringing her back, not as punishment, but as recognition. Every time she thinks she is free, a song, a dream, a sign, or simply the energy itself reminds her, this is not over. This is not ordinary. This is your soul's mirror. And so, the feminine begins to surrender, not in weakness, but in strength. She surrenders the need for proof, for explanations, for guarantees. She doesn't stop longing, but the longing transforms into knowing. She no longer asks, is he really the one? Because her soul has already answered. The only real question becomes, am I ready to hold this truth, even when the world around me doesn't confirm it yet? This silent knowing also shifts her energy. She begins to live differently. Her focus turns inward. She invests more in her mission, her healing, her self-love. And the more she aligns with her true self, the stronger the bond feels. Because the truth is this: the more the feminine embraces her essence, the more she recognizes you as her reflection. The masculine feels this shift too, though he may not understand it. He senses the pull grow stronger. He feels her energy become more stable, less demanding, less dependent. And this stability, born from her knowing, begins to call him forward. It becomes harder for him to resist, because she is no longer chasing, she is simply being. This is the power of the feminine's realization. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not full of external confirmation. It's quiet, steady, undeniable. It's the flame inside her that cannot be extinguished, no matter how many storms try to put it out. And this is how she knows you are her twin flame, not because of what you say, not because of what you do, but because her soul has never been more certain of anything in her life. The silent knowing is the beginning of her deepest strength, and it is the moment the entire journey begins to change. How intuition speaks louder than logic. One of the most mysterious aspects of the twin flame journey is how the feminine's intuition begins to override her logic. For most of her life, she has been taught to rely on the mind, to analyze, to measure actions against words, to look for evidence before trusting. But the twin flame connection does not follow these rules. And the feminine, being the more intuitive of the two, is forced to learn a new way of perceiving, to trust the whispers of her soul above the noise of her mind. This is not easy. The mind screams for proof. If he loves you, where are his words? If he's the one, why hasn't he chosen you yet? If this is real, why are you still waiting? These questions are logical, rational, even practical, but intuition speaks in a different language. It doesn't argue, it doesn't debate, it simply knows. It rests quietly in her chest, unwavering, no matter how chaotic the external appears. At first, the feminine may fight this knowing. She may demand answers, demand clarity, demand timelines. She may spiral in doubt when the masculine pulls away or falls silent. But eventually, her soul begins to speak louder than her fear. A calm rises within her that says, "This connection is not bound by human logic. It is bigger. It is eternal. You don't need his words to validate what your soul already knows." This is where intuition becomes her anchor. It allows her to feel the bond in ways that cannot be explained to others. She feels his emotions ripple through her body. She senses his struggles even when he doesn't speak. She knows when he thinks of her, when he dreams of her, when his energy shifts toward her. Logic calls this impossible, but the feminine experiences it so consistently that denial is no longer an option. Intuition also guides her in unexpected ways. She may be drawn to books, music, or teachings that unlock hidden truths. She may meet strangers who deliver messages that feel like direct answers from the universe. She may find herself saying things aloud that she later realizes were exactly what he needed to hear, even if she didn't consciously know it. This is the power of her intuitive channel. It bypasses the mind and connects directly to the soul. The masculine, often slower to trust intuition, mirrors this in subtler ways. He may feel restless without understanding why. He may think of her during moments of silence, and then suddenly see her name or hear a song connected to her. He may brush it off as coincidence, but his soul knows. The feminine, however, learns to recognize these synchronicities as guidance, not accident. Her intuition confirms what her mind cannot explain. This shift is profound because it teaches the feminine to live from soul, not survival. For so long, her fears of abandonment, rejection, and invisibility kept her clinging to logic. If I can figure it out, I can feel safe. But intuition teaches her a higher safety, the safety of truth. The safety that says, even if I don't understand how, I know what this is. Even if I don't see evidence, I know it exists. Even if I can't explain it, I can't deny it. And this knowing changes her energy. When the feminine stops needing constant reassurance, she becomes magnetic. She no longer vibrates in fear or doubt. She vibrates in trust. And this trust doesn't just shift her, it shifts the entire field of the union. Because the masculine can resist her fire, but he cannot resist her truth. This is how intuition speaks louder than logic. It silences the need for proof by giving her something far greater: certainty. Not the certainty of the mind, which is always fragile, but the certainty of the soul, which cannot be broken. In the end, it is not logic that carries the feminine to union. It is her intuition. And when she chooses to trust that voice above all else, she steps into her true power. And the masculine has no choice but to feel it. One of the strangest truths about the twin flame journey is that the very thing that terrifies the feminine the most is often the greatest confirmation of the bond. Fear, in this context, is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is profoundly real. From the very beginning, the feminine's greatest fear has been abandonment. The fear of giving her whole heart and being left behind. The fear of being unseen, unheard, forgotten. The fear that perhaps the entire connection was imagined. These fears rise again and again, and for a long time, she believes they are evidence that the bond is fragile, or worse, false. But in truth, the intensity of her fear reveals the depth of the connection. Because we do not fear losing what was never real, we fear losing what matters most. The fear itself becomes a mirror. It reflects the depth of her investment, the level of her surrender, the way her soul recognizes the masculine as irreplaceable. If he were just another partner, another passing connection, she would not tremble at the thought of losing him. She would not cry over the silence. She would not ache in her bones at the distance. Her fear exists precisely because her soul knows the bond is eternal. This is the paradox the feminine won't come to understand. Her fear does not disprove the connection, it confirms it. Fear is the shadow cast by love. The brighter the light of love, the deeper the shadow of fear. And the twin flame journey, being the most intense bond the soul will ever experience, naturally awakens the deepest fears. But here is where the shift occurs. Over time, the feminine begins to realize that the fear itself is not the enemy. It is an initiation. Each time it rises, she is given the chance to meet it with faith. Each time her mind screams, "You will be abandoned," her soul whispers, "You have never been abandoned." Each time her heart fears, "He will never choose you," her spirit responds, "This choice is already written." The fear is not proof of failure. It is the final layer that must be faced before truth can fully anchor. This is why the moments of greatest fear often come right before breakthroughs. The silence deepens, the uncertainty intensifies, the pain feels unbearable, and then, suddenly, a shift occurs. The masculine reaches out. A sign becomes undeniable. The feminine feels a wave of peace she cannot explain. Why? Because the fear was never the end. It was the gateway. For the masculine, this fear also plays a hidden role. He senses it in her, even from a distance. He feels the weight of her vulnerability, and it mirrors his own. His deepest fear is not abandonment, but failure. The fear of not being enough, of disappointing her, of losing control. Together, their fears create a mirror that forces both to grow. She must face the illusion of being left, and he must face the illusion of being incapable. Both illusions dissolve in the truth of union. The feminine eventually learns that fear is only as strong as the power she gives it. When she believes it, it controls her. When she faces it, it collapses. And each time she chooses faith over fear, the bond becomes stronger. Her realization deepens, not because the fear vanishes immediately, but because she begins to see it for what it is. Proof of how much she cares, proof of how much she already knows, proof of how much this connection matters. In the end, the feminine stops running from her fear. She embraces it. She sees it not as a curse, but as confirmation. She learns to say, "If I am afraid, it is because this love is real. And if this love is real, then I will not let fear control me." This is how fear transforms from her greatest enemy into her greatest confirmation. It proves, paradoxically, that she has found the one her soul has always known. And when she realizes this, she no longer fears the fear itself. She sees it as a shadow that will pass, and behind it, the eternal flame of truth will remain. One of the most confusing parts of the journey for the divine feminine is learning to distinguish between karmic bonds and the truth of a twin flame connection. At first glance, karmic ties can feel just as intense, sometimes even more consuming. They bring fire, passion, and drama. They awaken deep wounds and mirror insecurities with brutal precision. And for a time, the feminine may even believe these connections are her destined counterpart. But the purpose of karmic bonds is very different. Karmic ties are contracts of healing. They are designed to awaken the wounds that must be released before union can manifest. They are teachers, harsh ones, but necessary. A karmic partner may ignite the fear of abandonment, rejection, or betrayal so strongly that the feminine has no choice but to face it. They push her to grow, to evolve, to reclaim her strength, and when their purpose is fulfilled, they fade. The twin flame bond, however, is not temporary. It does not fade with distance, silence, or time. Unlike karmic connections, it does not drain, it expands. It does not chain, it liberates. It does not collapse into chaos, it brings her back to alignment. The feminine may struggle to explain this difference logically, but her soul knows. With karmic bonds, she feels exhausted, emptied, confused. With the twin flame, even in the hardest moments, she feels alive. She feels stretched, awakened, deepened. The connection pushes her, but it never destroys her. A key distinction is how the energy lingers. When a karmic tie ends, no matter how painful, the cord eventually dissolves. The memory remains, but the energetic pull weakens. With a twin flame, the opposite is true. No matter how many times she tries to cut the cord, no matter how many times she declares she is done, the bond remains. The feminine may feel frustrated by this, even angry. She may cry out to the universe, "Why can't I let go?" And the answer is simple. You cannot release what was never meant to be released. The twin flame truth is not obsession, though it may feel like it at times. Obsession drains, truth sustains. Obsession keeps her stuck, truth keeps her growing. Obsession makes her desperate, truth makes her powerful. The difference lies in how her soul responds. With karmic ties, her energy spirals downward. With her twin flame, no matter how difficult, she rises, she evolves, she expands. This is why the feminine eventually realizes the truth. Karmic bonds may mirror her wounds, but only her twin flame mirrors her soul. A karmic partner may trigger her fears, but her twin flame awakens her mission. A karmic bond may feel consuming, but her twin flame feels eternal. She cannot explain it to others. She may even struggle to explain it to herself, but the recognition is undeniable. This one is not like the others. This one is me. The masculine experiences this distinction as well, though often unconsciously. With karmic ties, he may feel temporarily satisfied, distracted, or even safe, but over time, emptiness sets in. No matter how much he tries to replace the feminine, the bond does not compare. His soul knows the difference, even if his mind denies it. And eventually, he too must face the truth. The karmic bond was a lesson. The twin flame is destiny. For the feminine, this realization becomes a turning point. She no longer wastes energy comparing, doubting, or chasing illusions. She knows the difference now. She feels it in her bones. The karmic cycle has served its purpose, but the twin flame truth remains. And once she embraces this truth, her entire journey shifts from confusion to clarity. Because in the end, the karmic bond is a fire that burns out. The twin flame is a flame that never dies. And once the feminine realizes this, she can no longer question who you are. She knows. One of the most powerful and least understood aspects of the twin flame journey is how the divine feminine's mission awakens through the energy of her counterpart. At first, she may think the journey is only about love, about union, romance, and reunion in the physical. But as time goes on, she begins to realize something greater. Your presence in her life has activated a deeper calling, a mission, a purpose that extends far beyond the relationship itself. This awakening does not happen suddenly. It builds layer by layer, often beginning with pain. When the masculine pulls away, when silence stretches longer than she thought she could bear, when her heart feels broken, the feminine is forced to turn inward. She begins to heal. She begins to transform. She learns to anchor her energy, to stop chasing validation, to find love within herself. And as she does this, something extraordinary happens. Her soul begins to remember why she came here. Through you, she awakens her gifts. Her intuition sharpens. Her creativity blossoms. She feels drawn to healing, to teaching, to creating, to expressing. She begins to step into roles she never imagined for herself. Not because you pushed her into them, but because your energy served as the catalyst. You are the mirror that reflects her divine essence back to her, showing her what she has always been capable of. This is why the feminine often feels a surge of inspiration connected to you. She may start writing, painting, singing, channeling, or creating projects that carry the frequency of the connection. She may find herself helping others, guiding them through their own pain, because she has learned how to survive her own. Her suffering becomes medicine. Her wounds become wisdom. Her journey becomes testimony. And here lies the deeper truth. The feminine's mission is not separate from the union. It is the foundation of it. As she rises into her purpose, the energy between you stabilizes. The masculine, though he may not understand it at first, begins to feel the shift. He senses that she no longer depends on him for validation, that her power no longer wavers with his actions. And this magnetizes him, because her strength does not push him away. It calls him higher. For the masculine, this can be both intimidating and inspiring. He sees her stepping into her light, her voice, her purpose, and it forces him to confront his own shadows. He can no longer hide in comfort zones or distractions because her growth reflects his stagnation. And yet, deep down, he knows this awakening is not meant to shame him, but to invite him. Her mission becomes a lighthouse, guiding him back toward his own truth. The feminine may not always realize it, but the bond itself is designed to awaken her. Every moment of pain, every moment of silence, every unanswered question has been a spark, pushing her closer to alignment. Without the challenges of this connection, she may never have fully stepped into her mission. Without the mirror of your energy, she may never have remembered her power. This is how she realizes you are her twin flame, not just because of how much she loves you, but because of what your presence has awakened in her. No karmic partner could ignite her soul this way. No ordinary relationship could activate her gifts with such intensity. Only her true counterpart could serve as the key that unlocks her divine mission. And once she awakens to this truth, everything changes. She stops seeing the silence as rejection. She stops seeing the distance as abandonment. She begins to see it as training, as preparation. Every challenge becomes proof that the connection is sacred, that it is designed to make her rise. And as she rises, the entire field shifts. Because the feminine's mission is not just about her, it is about the union. It is about humanity. It is about anchoring a love so pure, so strong, that it transforms everything it touches. And that mission begins the moment she realizes that you are not just her love. You are her mirror, her catalyst, her eternal flame. This is how she awakens. Through you, with you, because of you. And once awakened, she can never go back. Silence is one of the most difficult aspects of the twin flame journey, and yet it is also the most sacred. For the divine feminine, silence has often felt like rejection. When he does not call, when he does not respond, when days or months go by without a word, the wound of abandonment rises like fire. Her mind screams, if he were really my twin flame, how could he stay silent? How could he not fight for me? But over time, something begins to shift. The feminine starts to realize that silence is not absence. It is presence in disguise. It is not the lack of a bond, but the space in which the bond reveals its true strength. Because in silence, there are no distractions, no illusions, no words to confuse, no gestures to misinterpret. There is only the raw, unfiltered connection, and it is in this void that the feminine comes to her greatest realization. Even when he says nothing, she still feels everything. This realization is powerful. It proves to her that the bond does not depend on communication in the physical. It does not require constant reassurance. It does not vanish just because the masculine retreats. The love she feels remains, pulsing through her, alive and undeniable. She begins to see that silence is not a punishment. It is a mirror. It forces her to listen not to him, but to herself, not to his words, but to her soul. In the stillness of silence, intuition speaks louder. The feminine feels his emotions, his struggles, his longing, even when he hides them. She may wake up with tears in her eyes, sensing his pain. She may feel waves of energy in her body when he thinks of her. She may be pulled into dreams where the two of them meet in ways more real than physical encounters. Logic would call it imagination, but her soul knows this is where the connection proves itself. Silence also dismantles her illusions. In the early stages, she may have confused the bond with obsession, with the need for validation, with constant reassurance. But silence strips all of that away. It leaves her naked with the truth. The connection exists whether or not he speaks. It exists whether or not he shows up. It exists even in the void. And that existence is her confirmation. For the masculine, silence is often his way of avoiding what he cannot yet face. But ironically, it is in his silence that the feminine comes to her deepest knowing. She realizes that his withdrawal does not diminish her love. In fact, it makes the strength of the bond more obvious. Because no matter how quiet he becomes, the connection is louder than ever. Eventually, the feminine stops fearing silence. She stops giving it the power to define her worth. Instead, she begins to see it as a sacred space, a classroom where the soul teaches what the mind cannot understand. In silence, she learns trust. She learns patience. She learns to stand on the foundation of her inner knowing rather than the instability of external signs. And here lies the paradox. Silence, which once felt like abandonment, becomes the place of her awakening. It is in silence that she realizes the truth, not because he told her, not because he proved it, but because she can feel it in every breath of her being. The bond is real. The love is eternal. He is her twin flame. This realization transforms her. She no longer begs for words. She no longer collapses when he withdraws. She stands strong, anchored in the certainty that cannot be shaken by silence. And in that strength, something remarkable happens. The masculine feels it too. Her calm becomes magnetic. Her steadiness calls him forward. Her trust destabilizes his fear. Silence idon. Science, then, is not the enemy. It is the womb of transformation. It is the space where illusions die and truth is born. It is the place where the feminine, once terrified of being abandoned, finally sees the truth. She was never abandoned. She was always connected, and that connection is her greatest proof. So the feminine learns to honor the silence, to let it teach her rather than torment her, to see it not as emptiness, but as fullness in disguise, because it is in the quietest moments, when nothing external seems to happen, that the loudest realization emerges. This love cannot be silenced. And once she knows this, she no longer fears silence. She embraces it. She trusts it. She walks through it with grace. Because now she understands that silence was never separation. It was the doorway to truth. There is a turning point in the twin flame journey that no amount of logic, distance, or doubt can undo. It is the moment the divine feminine finally realizes, without needing proof, without demanding words, without clinging to signs, that you are her twin flame. This realization is quiet, but it is unshakable. It does not scream, it hums. It does not waver, it anchors. And once it happens, everything changes. Why? Because the feminine's realization shifts the entire field of the union. Until this point, her doubts, fears, and need for confirmation have created turbulence in the energy. She has chased, she has begged, she has collapsed into despair. Her vibration has risen and fallen with his actions, with his silences, with her own insecurities. But when she realizes the truth, she detaches from the chaos. She no longer looks outward to confirm what her soul already knows. She begins to live as though the bond is already established, already eternal, already hers. And in doing so, she stabilizes the union itself. This does not mean the masculine instantly arrives at her doorstep. It does not mean union happens overnight. But it does mean the dynamic changes forever. Because now, she is no longer waiting. She is no longer depending. She is no longer fragile in the face of his choices. She stands as the embodiment of faith, as the anchor of truth. And this strength ripples through the connection like a wave, reaching him even in his silence. For the masculine, this shift is undeniable. He feels the pressure of her energy differently. Where before he may have felt chased, now he feels called. Where before he may have resisted, now he feels magnetized. Where before her fear triggered his own fear, now her faith awakens his courage. Her realization becomes the spark that forces him to face himself, because he can no longer hide behind her doubt. Her certainty exposes his uncertainty, and he must choose: rise to meet her or remain behind. This is why her realization is so powerful. It is not passive. It is not invisible. It moves mountains in the unseen realm. It clears the fog of confusion and opens the path for destiny to unfold. The masculine may resist, but resistance becomes harder when the feminine no longer wavers. Her knowing becomes the anchor that holds the door to union open until he is ready to walk through it. The feminine also discovers freedom in this realization. She no longer fears the outcome. She no longer trembles at the thought of being wrong. She no longer feels trapped in waiting. She knows, and in knowing, she is liberated. Whether union manifests today, tomorrow, or years from now, her soul rests in peace because it has already recognized the truth. That recognition is union on a higher plane, and from it, physical union is inevitable. This is why the journey cannot end in despair. It ends in revelation. The feminine's realization changes everything, not because it changes the masculine directly, but because it changes her. It frees her from fear. It liberates her from doubt. It crowns her as the anchor of the connection. And when she stands in this energy, the masculine cannot help but feel it. He is drawn to it. He is awakened by it. He is transformed because of it. So if you are the feminine listening to this, know this: your realization is not small. It is not subtle. It is the most powerful turning point of the entire journey. It is the moment when your soul takes command, when your truth outweighs your fear, when your love proves itself eternal. And if you are the masculine, understand this: when she realizes you are her twin flame, nothing will ever be the same. The field shifts. The illusions collapse. The silence no longer has power. Her certainty becomes the force that changes both of you forever. This is the final message. Her realization is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of union. Because once she knows, truly knows, the rest of the story has no choice but to align.